Welcome, everyone. This is our fifth speaker of the day for the June 2023 Pressure Free Conference. I'm Elle Ingalls. I'm your host. I am the creator of the Pressure Free Method, which is an on-the-go stress management method you can use anywhere, anytime to uplevel your life and reduce stress, anxiety, depression, anything that's taking you out of your game. So I'm so happy to have Vanessa here today. Vanessa, Raymond, and I have known each other for a few years now, and she's got a very interesting background and comes to her work in a truly unique way. And so I want you to share, tell us who you are, Vanessa, and then we'll just dive right into some content. And really, just like you just saw with Jessica, we have a free flow here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Elle. Yes, welcome everybody. I'm so happy to be here, Elle. Thank you for the opportunity. I love your work, of course, and the work you do is so amazing. You do so much for people, and of course, we all live with stress and anxiety sometimes, and being able to manage that is huge. My name's Vanessa, as you all heard. I am originally from South Africa, if you might be picking up a little accent there. But I have been in the US for 23 years now, so it has pretty much become home. But I will share, I'm super excited. My parents are coming out to visit in just a few days here, so I cannot wait. But today, I'm really excited to just be here, be of service, and share with all of you. I grew up in South Africa with the big dream of wanting to be a performer. I danced since a very young age. My mom put me in ballet when I was 3. And since then, whenever anybody asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? It was always, I want to dance, right? But that's where I grew up. Was a very, very small industrial town on the tip of Africa. Being a performer was not really realistic out there. So when people heard me say, oh, I want to perform, they're like, no, really. What would you like to do to like really earn money and stuff?
Right.
And so it seemed like a very unrealistic dream. However, I was very fortunate. I have very supportive parents, supportive family. They always supported me in my mission and my dream. And so I did end up going to college and graduating with a major in musical theater, which led me on a path of performing professionally for years and years. But of course, again, in South Africa, it was the same thing. There wasn't a huge audience. Productions ran for very short amounts of time. It wasn't like in the United States or in the West End or on Broadway, where things run for years and years on end. You run a show for maybe 6 months or maybe a year if you're lucky, and then it's over, and then you're on to the next and the next and the next. So it was a very interesting lifestyle. It's like being a freelancer, right? Going from gig to gig, and it had its own trials and tribulations. And in that industry, as you know, Al, and as some of you might know, just like in a lot, anything that you excel at, a sport, playing an instrument, no matter what it is, if it's something that you're really passionate about and you put your life work into it, it can take its toll as far as people being critical and people being on your case about everything, right? And in the performance industry as such, the outward appearance is such a huge deal, right? Everything is about the outward appearance. It's such a superficial world, really, when you look at it. And so, it took a toll on me as far as self-confidence, self-image goes. But yet I still had a really, really successful career. Of course, also that led me here to the United States, which was a life dream for me and did come true. But it was an interesting path. And so everything that I share now, and I've done a lot of other things since. I've been in the fitness industry. I've been in the beauty industry. I have a lot of passions. But I've brought it all together, and really now I love helping people, specifically entrepreneurs and speakers and leaders, with their self-image and their self-confidence. Because when you're in the limelight, when you're in a leadership role, when you're up there, when you're leading others, it's not always that easy to stay on top of it, right? To stay your best. You're always on. You're always like we say in the performance industry, you always have to be on, right? It's always time. It's showtime. And so how do you sustain that? How do you maintain that? And how are you authentic and stand in your own true power while leading, while being the example, and not let it get you down? So that is why I'm so passionate about this work. And so I have certain principles that I share, but as you know, Al, I do come from a unique perspective because of my physical background, because of being a dancer my whole life, being a performer my whole life. I'm also Pilates instructor, yoga instructor, personal trainer. I was a esthetician, cosmetologist for a while. So I have all these references, all these experiences with clients that have really taught me so many lessons. And that's the cool thing about being a coach of any kind or any sort. And I know you can attest to this, Al, and Stephen. I don't really know what you do yet, but I'm excited to learn more about you. But as leaders, we learn from our students all the time.
Yes.
And that's probably part of my journey as a coach that I love the most, is all the lessons I learn in my experiences with my clients, with my students, whether it's in the gym or on Zoom coaching like this or wherever it may be. But I have learned that body-mind integration is so important. Mindset work is imperative. We have to do the mindset work. But if we don't do the body work along with the mindset work, there's a big piece missing. And so a lot of the focus that I have when I share about confidence, about leadership, about self-image, about standing in your own power, it has a lot to do with how our bodies and the movement and the way we carry ourselves as human beings translate out into the world. Because we're all energetic beings, right? We radiate energy, we radiate frequency. I always like to talk about, and I always have to laugh because when I say, who of you here remember how to tune a radio, right? Because these days everyone's streaming, but I think majority of us still have radios in our car. Maybe it's a button that you push instead of turn. But when you tune your radio, you are looking for a specific frequency, right? You know what you're looking for. You're looking for the top 40 radio station, or you're looking for the classical station or the comedy station or the talk show. You know what frequency it is you would like to tune into. Now, I'm going to ask you, are you aware of what frequency people are tuning into when they're tuning into you? What is it that you are putting out there for others to tune into? And yes, it's true. Not everybody likes the classical station. Not everybody likes the hard rock station. And you know what? That's one of the things I love to share, is that it's okay. It's okay for not everybody to want to tune into your station, right? It's okay for us to not be liked or loved by everybody. And this is a pitfall that I fell into in a good period of my life. I've always been a people pleaser, right? And I think a lot of people can identify with that. And it wasn't about so much people liking me or loving me, but it was about wanting other people to know that I care, right? And so what happens when we do this, when we try and cater to everybody around us and we try and make every single person happy, what do we have to do that? We have to compromise sometimes our own selves in ways that is not appropriate, right? In ways that is maybe not best in our best interest. And I'm not saying everything should always be in our best interest, but we need to learn where our boundaries are and where we need to draw the line, right? And so what happened to me is, with me, it wasn't a conscious thing. I think with most people, it's not a conscious thing. It's something we do subconsciously or unconsciously, if that's our tendency. I was just losing sight of who I was as a human being, because we have to be such chameleons to be able to do that. We forget, and we actually forget who we are. We lose sight of who we are, and we lose sight of Where are we going? What are our goals? Where do we want to go? Because in effect, everything I was doing was to make so-and-so happy, to keep so-and-so happy, to not create conflict. How many of us get anxiety around conflict, right? So that was part of the issue for me, was anxiety around conflict. I not like conflict at all. Who does? But I didn't know how to handle conflict. So I would avoid conflict by compromising in such a way that I would just take things in. I always said, I let it run off my back like water off a duck's back, right? But we don't really do that. Eventually, all that stuff builds up and it's in there and it's boiling and it's boiling, and eventually it all blows up and it boils over. In my case, it didn't happen in the way of like an outburst or a big breakdown or anything like that. But things in my life started falling apart, because I wasn't communicating authentically, because I was compromising my communication so that I wouldn't create conflict, right? And so in thinking that I was giving the other people what they needed to keep them happy, I was actually not, because they did not know what they needed from me, because I was not communicating that either. So I've gone on this whole tangent now.
Yeah.
I feel like it's relevant because we're talking about leadership. We're talking about standing in your power.
Yes.
I talk about confidence. I talk about self-image. And the point is, when we compromise who we are in order to appease others or keep others happy or make sure that everybody wants to be around us or like us, we are really not serving anybody. So my message to you today is, what I'm going to share with you in the next few minutes is things that you can do to get back to who you are, stand in your own power, and have a frequency that is authentic and real, but it is you being the best you that you can be. We always want to.
I want to speak to the frequency just for a moment, because both you and I are performers. And so when you take a stage and you have a 2000 seat hall, we have to have the energy that goes all the way to the very last row, all the way to those doors. And that is kind of a unique thing that those of us who are concert performers know about. Yes. Like how, and so I love this frequency idea. Like, I'm really going to muse about this after today. Thank you so much for bringing that forward, because it's a frequency within us, but it's also this radio signal that we send out all the way to the room that we're in, or to, to whatever it is that we're doing, even within our families. Like,
right.
To share the frequency out, because a lot of us are very closed and very tight. And that
we are, Ellen. Thanks for sharing that. Yes, absolutely. And that is really part of the lesson here. We are contagious as human beings. You underestimate the amount of power you have within how you affect other people, how you can impact other people. For those of you here that don't know this, I'm going to share this, and I think you're aware of this, but did you know that 93% of our communication is body language and vocal communication, not the words we speak, right? So only 7% of what people hear from you is the words that you speak. So the words that come out of your mouth, you've all heard, oh, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, right? We've all heard that. That is where that comes. The 7% is the actual words that you speak. The rest is, what is your body doing? What's your tone of voice? How are you communicating that message, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about posture and body language, which is pretty much 60% of what I work on with my clients when we work on self-image, standing in your power. And why? Why do I do that? Because the way our bodies move, you've all heard of the runner's high, right? So when people work out, they create endorphins, and it gives them all this extra energy and adrenaline and all these wonderful things that are positive in our bodies, right? But did you know that simply by aligning your body properly, getting into that beautiful regal posture, being wide, being broad, being upright gives the same effect, right? So it's been proven, those of you familiar with power poses, power postures, that if we hold a power pose or a power posture for 2 minutes, we can increase the endorphins and the testosterone, which is our power hormone in our brain. And if we go into those internal low power poses that we tend to either go into body language wise when we are depressed or when we are feeling down, but sometimes it's just bad habits, right? We're in this posture because we're in front of the computer, we're driving, we're sitting with our phones, right? We do this thing. We're actually increasing the cortisol in our systems, which is our stress hormone. And so by simply, and I know Leela and I are very in sync with these things, when you open up your body and you breathe, you open your lungs and you are tall and you're aligned with gravity, you are creating already positive frequencies, positive energy, hormonal changes in your brain happen because you're simply straightening up. And think about it for a second. Gravity is a thing, right? And so when we are walking around like this, your head is heavy, gravity's pulling right here, we're carrying, and then we complain of neck and shoulder pain. And what does pain do? Pain makes us irritable, it makes us feel grumpy and just icky, right? So by simply aligning your posture, you're doing a ton of different things here. You're aligning the meridians, you're getting better blood flow, you're getting more oxygen in your lungs, oxygen to the brain. You're creating these positive hormones, these power hormones. You're eliminating pain. 80% of the pain that we experience on a daily basis, this is not for everybody, but I would say a good 80% is because of poor movement patterns, because of poor posture. We create this pain in our bodies and we can't understand, why is my lower back hurt? Why does my neck hurt? Why does but the moment you start engaging your body into that beautiful posture, and yes, for some of us, it can be hard in the beginning because our muscles aren't conditioned to hold us there, but start small. Remind yourself, put a reminder on your phone for every 30 minutes to straighten up for a few minutes. And as you do that more and more during the day, one of my cues is a red traffic light. When I'm sitting at a red traffic light, that's my cue to straighten up and remember to have good posture and get my ears over my shoulders and my shoulders over my hips. I'm sitting, but it's the same when you're sitting, right? Most of us struggle with this when we're sitting for the most part. Start small. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. And what is my point with this? We can change our mental emotional state by changing the way we move. And so when you start becoming aware, when you engage in awareness of how your body is in space, and Al, when you talk about reaching the back of the room of a 2,000 auditorium of 2,000 audience members, I remember some of my directors and choreographers always say, you need to perform to the person in the back of the room, not the front row. So when you walk into that networking event, or you walk onto that stage, or you get on this screen, how is your energy carrying? Who are you focusing on? Are you connecting? Are you putting your energy out there, your frequency out there? For people, and then awareness of body language, but also awareness. When I talk about frequency, I always ask this question. I say, how would you like to make people feel in your presence?
I like
There's
that.
no wrong answer here, right? For everybody, this is different. Al, what came up for you? How would you like other people to feel in your presence?
It varies very much so. I have to be careful sometimes. Like if I go even into a grocery store or something, sometimes my light is just so bright. Like everybody, I'm smiley anyway, like I'm going to say hello, I'm going to smile, but like children want to touch me. Like it gets weird sometimes. Like I go too bright, so I have to dial it down a little bit. Because I've spent so much of my life just like a really big presence. And so understanding what's appropriate, I think, is really important too, like that.
That's wonderful. Yes. And again, coming back to the awareness, what is your light? How much light do you have? Where is it appropriate? And when we talk about being appropriate, that's when I come into dress codes too, when I talk to people about how they're dressing. Because, and this can be a very controversial comment for a lot of people out there. So
I love it. Do it.
I'm just gonna say this, that, authenticity has become such a buzzword. And even though I love the word authentic, because in its essence, it's really great, I have found that some people use authenticity as an excuse to not show up appropriately. Right. Yeah. And so, if you feel like your authentic style is being in sweats and a t-shirt, that's fine, but we're all three-dimensional beings. We all have different sides to us, and there are still certain things that aren't appropriate in certain settings, right? And so I always ask the people that know me, that come to my conferences, that come and see me, I'm like, do you think I'm less authentic sitting on my couch in my sweats and t-shirts than I am in my little black dress at the cocktail party, right? No, I'm not. It's still me. I'm still being authentic,
right?
But I'm simply showing up for the occasion in my very best way that I can. And so being authentic does not mean we stop striving to be better. We always want to strive to be our best. And that doesn't mean that we're faking it or we're not being authentic. We all can step into our future better vision by having a vision. And so I also encourage my clients to create that future version of themselves, that future vision of who is it that, or maybe if you can't envision that, who do you admire that maybe can be a role model? We all want to always strive for better and up our energy and up our frequency and up the way we show up in the world. Why? Because when we're standing in our own power and when we are sharing our love, our frequency, our energy, we are empowering others to do the same.
Giving people permission.
Yeah. Giving people permission. Yes.
You just used the word better. And I just want to connect that back to Jason, because Jason used that word very specifically too. So that's a connector. And I have one piece to say about the authenticity in my work. Some people think that the way they act under the influence of stress hormones, adrenaline being one of them, is their authentic self, and it isn't. That's you. Your brain on adrenaline is not your true self.
Right.
And so oftentimes you think, oh, I'm being my authentic self, and that's aggressive or whatever it is. But if once we clean out the stress hormones, you get to find out who you really are.
Oh,
and
I love
that. That is so powerful. Then you find your true power from the inside, and you don't have to fake anything to make it.
Absolutely.
So cool.
Absolutely, Al. Yes, I absolutely love that. And, and thanks for sharing that and clarifying that. But also just to come back to the adrenaline, I also always say to my speakers, because that's what anxiety is, right? It is adrenaline. That's what nerves are, is adrenaline. And I always say to my clients, if you can channel the nerves into excitement, which adrenaline is present in both places. If you can change the mindset, the thought from, oh, I'm nervous to, oh, I'm so excited. This is scary, but it's awesome. Put that smile on your face. We flip the switch in our brain from, oh, I'm so nervous. My hands are sweaty. I'm scared I'm going to do this or this or that. And the more we think about the things that could go wrong, the worse the anxiety gets, the worse the fear gets, the worse the nerves get. Whereas if we can flip the switch to, oh, I'm so excited, this is going to be awesome. You know what? No matter what, I'm going to be my best. I'm going to share what I can. I'm here to help. And you switch your focus to the audience. What are you doing to serve them?
The audience, yeah.
Yeah. Then that flips the switch too. And even though the feeling is still there, it's manageable. And yes, I know you have a whole
We go deep.
whole system around this. And so
Yeah.
it's
And I
this,
want to, Stephen said something here that I love. It's the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And there's quoted by Hervecker. He said, Andy Henriquez here, but it's a quote that we hear a lot. And
right.
that's coming back to your point of appropriateness. And I love that. You know, how are we showing up and what are we doing? And then he also says, this makes me think of hearing you all talk. What is the tune or tone that you are operating in?
Yes.
Our tone, yeah, it's so big.
Yes, I love that. The tune or tone, Stephen, that's beautiful. What is the song you're singing, right? What is it that the world hears from you? And I know when we talk about self-image or we talk about self-confidence, for a lot of people, they will look at me and they go, yeah, but you already have it all. That's why you can be confident. I'm like, no, you know what? We can all be confident. It's a skill. We can all be step into that leadership role and be leaders of our own lives. And all you need is a little guidance and some tools. And so posture and body language is one of many tools that I teach, but it really is the root of a lot of what we deal with on a daily basis. And when we understand the power of how altering our posture and our body language and how people perceive us, how we are being, does not necessarily have to be reflective of how we really feel inside. And now we're getting back to that authenticity thing, right? This is a complicated kind of concept, but sometimes by being something that we're not necessarily feeling yet, we perpetuate the feeling within ourselves and we can start embodying it. So yes,
Good.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily, hey, before you turned on my camera here, I was a little nervous because honestly, I didn't prepare for this. I just showed up. I'm like, all right, we're going to do this now, right?
Because that's what I like. You came in.
But I also had to go to the text and go, oh, what was it that Elle wanted me to do today, right? This is my 5th speaking gig this week. So I just kind of showed up and I was like, okay, well, I didn't really prepare for this one, but I knew that if I brought what I teach to the table, the rest would come, right? We feel we feed off of others. We feel from others. We feel energy. And if we are in tune with that, if we, like I said, your posture, I hope I'm not going on. I'm almost done here.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Your posture is the universal language of confidence, right? Body language is universal. Now, there are some cultural differences here and there, but for the most part, if you walk into a room tall, broad, breathing, smiling, people see you as confident, self-secure, self-assured, right? Even if you're not feeling it so much inside. But what happens is people will approach you because you're approachable, you're open. People will start having conversations with you. And what does that do? That in itself builds your self-image and your self-confidence. Someone might give you a compliment. You mentioned the grocery store. I actually did a little test thingy. What do you call it? A little, years ago when I started my Victory Factor program, I decided I was going to go into the grocery store and I was going to wear the same clothes, same makeup, same everything. But the first time I walked in, I totally minded my own business, did my own thing. I didn't make eye contact with anybody. I was in and out in 10 minutes, checked out, left. Came back half an hour later, same makeup, same clothes, same. I put on my smile. I stood tall and I made eye contact with people. 3 people in the store had conversations with me, either gave me a compliment. One guy even came up to me and said, hey, ma'am, I hope I'm not being too forward, but you look beautiful today and thank you for your smile, right? So what does that do for you as a human being? That in itself builds self-confidence, builds self-image. So my point is, you don't always have to feel it first. By embodying it, by acting it, right? You see, one of my slogans is act it, feel it, be it. Because if you act it, you can start feeling it. And when you start feeling it, you can be it, you can embody it. But if we've never experienced it, it's very hard to embody it. So how do you experience it? By, okay, here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to smile. I'm going to make eye contact with some people, and I'm going to be gracious and friendly, right? I'm going to stand tall. I'm going to walk with a brisk stride, energetically. And then people pick up on your frequency and they notice you. And when you, some people don't want to be noticed, but believe me, if you can just get started with the smallest little thing, that smile or that eye contact, you will learn that it's okay to be noticed.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It's so powerful. And, you know, I feel as though, this is a strange thing to say, but when I was a girl growing up in New England, if you didn't sit upright at your desk, you were reprimanded. And now how do people sit at their desks in schools? Like
Yeah.
they're allowed to do anything in most classrooms, not all, but in most classrooms. And so we've got people today on their phones. They're like this, they're so over. And like you said, where are they going to be a few years from now? They'll be with a cane, like they can't even hold themselves upright.
Right.
So,
Plus, it affects your ability to learn, to absorb,
absolutely,
to communicate, to connect. One of our base human needs is connection, and we're cutting ourselves off from others. And then we wonder why we're depressed
and lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. This is so good. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you for coming in. And I love that you just came in, because organic is great. You know, we get to go where the conversation leads us, and coming back to posture and also tone of voice.
Yes.
Tone of voice is really huge. And you can start to open up your ears to listening to others' tones, and that can really clue you into what's happening. If someone's tone goes really high pitched and tight, they've probably triggered the stress response. Like they're not their full self. And in families, when we move into that tight voice, they shut off. They don't even listen to us.
Right.
If you want to be heard, if you really want to be seen and heard, this posture, this tone of voice, like you brought forward, so powerful.
Yes, Alan, actually, I do a whole module of my workshop is called vocal image. And because I was a singer, I had my own vocal issues. I had surgery on my vocal cords. I went through, rehab with my vocal cords, speech therapy, all the stuff. I love to share with people, but not only that, the throat chakra that's really associated with the vocal cords and everything that we do, when that is shut off, it shuts us off from authentic, real connection and communication with those we love most in our lives. And something that I did not anticipate was I've had, for me, working with the voice was about projecting and about tone and about genre and timbre and all this stuff. And how can the audience hear you in the back of the room at first, before I did the work I do now. But then I had people have severe emotional responses to this work I was doing with them, the breathing exercises and the vocal exercises. I'd have people in tears and I'm like, what the heck's happening? And I learned it's their throat chakra opening up and them finding the freedom to actually speak and actually share what they really feel and being able to communicate more effectively. So it's very powerful. All this stuff I always say seems so superficial, but when you start doing the work, the effects emotionally, mentally is very interesting.
So good. Thank you so much for this. This is really powerful. And we could go over a little. Derek's coming in at 1, and I'm going to do a short session here before we launch into Derek's today. But Vanessa, thank you so much for coming in, your willingness to share. And it's just great to have someone who is a performer share this, because a lot of times people don't know. They don't know what performers know and some of the tricks. And so I'm really grateful for you.
You're welcome, Ellen. Remember, life's your stage, people. You're all performers in your own life. So see it that way. It's fun. It's exciting. Have fun with it.
That's beautiful. That was a great way to end. Thank you.
Thank you, Elle.